Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is your friend, your mentor. If you want me to be your mentor, and I'm here with Jeff today, Jeff Porter. Actually, this is not the first time I'm with Jeff. This is my second time running this webinar with Jeff. So he was so good, so powerful in the previous webinar that was done in actually July 23. So
Yeah.
just after your PgMP.
Yeah, time flies.
Yeah, time flies. And then you did PfMP. Then okay, why not? And why I invited again, because I was so impressed from your presentation during the LA conference, and I was happened to be watching you live there in the audience. It was so good. Okay, I want to bring this topic again, and maybe to wider audience, so people who were not able to attend the LA conference, maybe this is the opportunity for them to learn from you.
Yeah, and yeah, I love to share this topic. I'm passionate about this topic, and I'm really excited because it's so applicable to all of us, right?
Yeah, yeah. So my name is Dharam Singh, and Jeff Porter is my guest today. I'm really happy to have him here with his vast experience as a project program management, portfolio management, more than 15 years, maybe 16, 17 years in working in waterfall and agile methodologies. And you're currently working for WGU, is that correct?
Yes, for last eight plus years now.
So as I said, Jeff coming with lots of experience from WGU and many other previous organizations, and he has utilized various principles, servant leadership principles, critical project management, soft skills, whatever, running the project programs. So the most important thing I like to talk about, of course, other than PgMP PfMP, he holds 2 master's degree, one in business and in leadership. And other than that, he's the PgMP, he's the PfMP, he's the PMP, he's the ACP, CSM, many other certificates. So, but he gave me opportunity to be his mentor in 2023 when he passed his PgMP exam with flying colors on 31st of March 23. Then PfMP, 30th of July 2024, almost just over 1 year, and somehow he's maintaining the end of the month kind of thing, 31st May, March, and 30th of July. Anyway,
I'm going to keep that up this year too, because the end of June I'm going to get my RMP, so I have to keep up the end of the month pattern.
So good to have you here, and thank you for accepting my invite for this particular webinar. I'm sure we're going to have lots of fun here and a lot of learning to have today. So Jeff, I will give you opportunity to talk about yourself and anything you want to share about your PgMP PfMP journey. And to the audience, thank you guys for joining. I'm happy to have you here, and some of you are coming again. I'm sure you're getting lots of value from this. And the most important thing is you're going to learn. And another important thing, if you have PMP, PgMP, or some certificates, you will be able to earn 1 PDU. We have approved PDU, which you can apply. You get not only learning, but also utilizing this PDU for maintaining your ongoing certifications. And if you are looking for more PDUs, you can always go back to my YouTube channel, where lots of previous webinars, especially the last 1 year, you can collect more and more PDUs from that. Okay. All right, Jeff, over to you. Tell us more about you and your journey, PgMP PfMP, why you decided, what did you do?
Yeah, thanks, Dharman, and thanks. It's great to be back here, and PgMP and then PfMP was just starting to look at where do I want to go, and how can I learn more about industry standards? How can I position myself to be able to open up more opportunities? And that was part of my journey. And also just, I'm kind of a certification, kind of always wanting to learn type of person. But I have to say, if anyone here is thinking about doing the PgMP or the PfMP for portfolio, both of these high level, elite executive type certifications from PMI, what really to me sets them apart from just even all the experience that I know many of you have even, is the content. It's content that is so applicable, and it's spot on to what you need to do to be a program manager, to be a portfolio manager. And so, but I also want to say, if you're thinking about going through those journeys, having, because they're not easy, the application process is very tough. But I'm glad, because it really makes you be like, okay, if I'm going to do this, PMI wants you to be serious about it. They want you to have the right experience. And for me, it was like, okay, I have this, but now what? How can I get this certification to show the value that these have? And if you're going to do that, I also highly recommend, I'm not being paid to say this. Dharam has not even asked me to say this, but I'm going to say it because it's true, that Dharam's courses and mentorship and his books that he wrote for PgMP and PfMP, PgMP, and PfMP were absolutely critical and foundational for my success going through these certifications. So definitely, if you're thinking about it, I highly would recommend Dharam's services, even from helping support with looking out for what to look out for when you're going through the application process. Writing, it's so important to be able to know how to write your panel review questions and your summaries. So that's a little bit about why I went through, and then now looking back on it, now it's really neat, because now, for me, just as important as getting a certification yourself, and we're going to talk about this today, it's sharing that information. That's all part of organizational culture. It's like, if you just hold that information to yourself, it really doesn't do anybody any good. So that's one thing that I'm very passionate about, is learning these things. Yes, getting the certifications, but then encouraging others to do the same.
Great, thank you, Jeff, and thank you for mentioning my name. I'm sure you have enjoyed the learning process, and along with this, like you, I'm very proud to say 547 PgMPs and 173 PfMPs, and thank you for your contribution. Every time somebody comes, you add one number to me, which is great, and I think this is more than 7% of global number. I'm happy. Can I be more happy? Yes. More and more people come to me, and I can give them what they're looking for. They can get the benefit out of this. Yeah, that's my reason for happiness. Thank you. Okay, and you did mention about my material, my all the thing. Thank you for that. And recently I have released my exam simulator, which was released last year actually, and also released my app that is called vCare PM Exam Mentor. I actually put some information on the chat. Yeah, you can, if you have iOS or Android devices, feel free to download. There are a number of things available for you to use for free, and something you like to buy, of course, you can get the question banks or some other material from there. Now, Jeff, I have a few questions for you. We're going to go through them, and please help us by providing your insight from your point of view, and there are people who are waiting to listen from you. Okay, so my first question, how can project, program, and portfolio manager recognize and understand the existing organizational culture they're working within, and what they do? Where can they start?
Yeah, so for us as project professionals, I'll just say that to lump all three of the program, project, and portfolio managers. One thing to understand the organizational cultures is, one, to even know, like, we sometimes assume that everybody knows what organizational culture is. And so number one place to start is, what is organizational culture? And when I present this, I have some slides, and I have a couple quotes people, and one of them is Alan Adler, and he says, it's the civilization of a workplace.
Yeah.
It is the another description for organizational culture is it is the glue that holds everything together. And I have an image of a tree, and this is if you want to think about where do I start. Organizational culture comes from where? It comes from the top. It is created by your executive leadership, your board of directors, however your organization is structured. That's where organizational comes from. So that's a good place to start. What does that look like? And if you think about that tree, they are the trunk. They are the trunk and the hands, and this image then has a whole bunch of little hands, and that's us. And so this is the trunk, but the tree isn't living unless all of us, and then including project professionals, make that tree grow.
Yep.
And that's how we function within that tree. So that's the first place to start. And then you're like, okay, great. Well, now I know that this is kind of the glue. But then you're like, well, how do I recognize it? Because that's another big component is how do I recognize organizational culture? And if I can, I'll just briefly go through 4 different main types of organizational culture. And as I say these, what you should do then is think about, is this my organization? Is this my company? And research by Kim Cameron and Robert Quinn did some pivotal research about 40 years ago that found that 90% of organizations fall into these 4. So chances are you fall into these 4, and the remaining 10% are typically a blend of those 4. And so one of the first ones is your clan culture. So if you think about, and if somebody wants to even, type something in the chat here, what do you think about when you think about a clan? For me, this and what it is, this is a very easy one for me because of even my heritage and background. I have Irish and Scottish background, so there's a lot of clan names. Like if you hear clan names, that's exactly what it is. You have a group of people over here, and this is your culture, and this is this is the IT department, and this is the finance department. Don't think of it as silos, but think of it as these clans that collaborate together. So clan cultures are very horizontal. They very much encourage, oh, hey, I see Dharam in the hallway, and say, hey, Dharam, let's talk about this. And then you have an ad hoc culture, which takes those one-off meetings even further, very much into startups. High-tech companies have a lot of adhocracy culture. Why? Because they're big risk takers. And so you see a lot of, so if you're thinking about, yeah, my organization, I get Teams invites or Zooms, or I'm in the office and people are grabbing me all the time saying, hey, we're gonna have a meeting in 5 minutes, or hey, Jeff, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Then you're probably in some sort of adhocracy culture. And they're the thing that's neat about adhocracy is they very much are open to ideas. But if your company is very risk adverse, you're probably not in an adhocracy culture. And then the third out of the 4 is a market culture. So another good place to start. A market culture, think of finances. Like it is financial success. Well, you may be thinking, well, yeah, Jeff, that makes sense. All of us want to be financially successful. But what a market culture does is it looks at, say, you as a project manager, you as a program manager, a portfolio manager, a leader, and says, what are you doing to contribute to the financial success? And so that's why that market culture all revolves around the product and the financial success of the organization and how much you can contribute. And then lastly, there's a hierarchy culture. And if you're like, oh, I think of an organizational chart.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. It is your traditional, if you will, hierarchy culture where this executive feeds down to this upper management, feeds down to this mainline management, feeds down to us individual contributors, and they're very vertical in how they operate. Some look at that as being a negative, but it depends on the type of the organization, because those the flip side of that type of hierarchy, they usually have very clear managerial processes. They're very streamlined. They've gone through value analysis to make sure that what they're doing actually has value. So those are the 4 organizational cultures. So as you're thinking about those, you can think, where do I fit in? And what type of organizational culture does my organization have? So that's a good place to start, because if you don't at least recognize it, then you don't know how to function in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So being aware of organizational culture. I mean, every organization, every culture can have different way of doing things, accepting the changes or adaptability. Some are fast, some are slow, as you can imagine. So being aware of culture is very important for your stakeholder engagement and other factors.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, the next part of that kind of goes into, I think, what we may be talking about next as well. Yes, so the 4th one is hierarchy culture. Yeah, and that is the that's that vertical kind of traditional organizational chart where you have executives, upper management, middle management, however that structure is, and then individual contributors. And the other part of that hierarchy culture is that very clear managerial processes. There's a lot of value. There's a lot of you see a lot of lean principles in these, because they've gone through and said this is the way that it needs to be, because this is the way that this is the best value through those processes. So that's the 4th one.
Okay, so my next question to you: what's some of the best practices for ensuring cultural initiatives align with organizational strategy and project outcomes, especially in large scale or cross-functional environments?
Dharam's question was like the practices ensuring cultural initiatives. How do you make sure that that aligns with your strategy and project outcomes? This is a great question, and it's perfect timing, at least for me, because our organization is going through our fiscal year planning process, and that is something that is very key to strategy and culture. Is when you're going through, it's like, how do we, on this large scale, which is what these are, we're talking big enterprise-wide initiatives. And the very first thing, kind of like the first answer, it's like, well, where do I start? Well, to be able to align to the strategy, you have to be informed of the strategy. And when you first hear that, a lot of people are like, well, almost kind of that, well, yeah, that makes sense. Who's not informed? But there's actually been research done. Kaplan and Norton actually wrote a book called The Balanced Scorecard. And they did research and talking to organizations and companies, and found that some organizations, up to 95% of people in their organizations were not informed or did not understand their organizational strategy. That is 9.5 out of 10 people. Even if it's 50%, that means that I don't understand it, but Dharam does. And that is a ton. And that their same research came out to find that alone led to 30% of project failures. So it's like, okay, that's large. 3 out of every 10 projects fail just because I don't know what's going on up here. And so that's number 1, is to be informed of the strategy. And then number 2 is being aware of your organizational culture. Going right back to question number 1 is understanding, where is my culture? Because again, where does that come from? That comes from your executives, who create your organizational strategy. Your executives and your boards and your VPs, your SVPs, your C-suites. So they very much go hand in hand. So if you are informed of the strategy, say, what is our 3 to 5 year mission, values, goals? How do I take that organizational culture that I'm in? We'll just say I am in a clan culture. then where does my clan culture fit in and how do I function in that through this strategy? And so that's number 2, is to be informed, be aware, and then you're ready to actually be active in participating in it. Meaning we're not like the ostrich with our head stuck in the sand, not knowing what's going outside of our project, but we have our head out of the sand and we actually understand what's going on and the value and purpose, which we'll get into in just a little bit for project professionals, how we can function in that. So that's, and let me see the last part. Oh yeah, and then strategy and project outcomes. Yeah, so you can see how that goes hand in hand. I mean, Kaplan and Norton, just that one statistic alone, 3 out of every 10 projects that we are all starting fail if we don't understand that strategy. So, and that's not to mention all the other reasons why projects fail. You know, budget, time, they just get stopped. They don't align with strategy. So those are 3 very big things. Be informed of the strategy, be aware of the culture that you're in, and then be active in participating in it. Because a lot of people and project professionals, sometimes we think, well, we're kind of passive, right? We just kind of follow the plan and make sure everyone, but I would very much encourage us to really be more active in participating with our stakeholders.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I can see some question here. Portfolio management need a mission, also called, to understand what the end goal looks like. Okay. Then to build a roadmap, via build an objective to get to the end blueprint. And please, can you run through your steps, also called mission, vision, roadmap? Then how do you choose, prioritize the projects? Evaluation of risk versus ROI, versus resources, versus time scales.
Go up to the bottom here. Which one of these? So let's see. This is how you choose and prioritize. Okay, so yeah, let's take. Well, I'll take that last question there that you just read for portfolio management. Yeah. Need a mission, aka to understand the end goal looks like, and to build a roadmap, the objectives to get to that to the end. Please, can you run through your steps, mission, vision, then how you choose to grow? Yeah, so I'll actually get into a little bit from that portfolio management here and just a little bit. So I'll probably address some of those, but to address the question about mission, vision, roadmap, that is so key. You really bring out a great point in there, because that is where, not just in portfolio management, but that is where on that executive strategy management, even where all of that begins, of which you as a portfolio manager would be very much involved in, to be able to say, here's our initiatives, here's our vision and mission, how does that align to the strategy? So then you create that, you use that to help with your prioritization, and then once you get that, then I would build that roadmap, because now you know, okay, here's our high level roadmap, and we know already, because we've already done the exercise, that these things we're putting on the roadmap align and are in agreement by our executive leaders, that this is where we want to go, this fits into our culture, this fits into our strategy, and then you can build that roadmap. Then once you start executing on that as a portfolio manager, you watch those programs and those projects within your portfolio to make sure that they stay aligned with that roadmap and those mission and strategy. So hopefully that helps answer your question. But great point, because you brought up 3 things that absolutely need to happen before we get to that execution phase.
Yeah, I was seeing that how well you are explaining the class we had, the strategy, objective, goals, KPIs, SLAs, everything together. And the roadmap, initiatives, to the portfolio, to the program, to the project, everything has to be perfectly aligned.
Yes. Yeah, great question. Just let me see here.
Great, thank you for explaining. I will move to the next question. And now, in your experience, what are some unique ways project program and portfolio manager have to influence organizational culture. How can you influence the culture?
So I wish, and this one is on me. I should have shared a couple slides with Dharam beforehand. I have a couple slides that would really illustrate this for each of these roles. So I'll try to explain them without the visual, but it is much more exciting to see because they have pretty flowers on them. So, but this is really the heart of this topic of when I present it, is what unique role we have as project, program, and portfolio managers. And I'll just ask, and I know some of you said that you can't see the chat or whatever, but if you can't see the chat, but even in the questions, as I'm going through this, why don't you write down, if something comes to mind, why do you think you have a unique role? Like, think about those things as I'm going through here and see if it prompts anything, because I would love to hear your ideas. Why do you think your role is unique? And because I believe it is, and I think research and history and data tells us that it is. And number one for a project manager is, and I'm going to break all these down. I'm just going to pull something up here on my end. I'm going to break all of our roles down into three things that start with U: unique, and understanding, and utilizing. So first, with project managers, you need to be your unique role as you work with your stakeholders. Think about, is there anybody else in an organization that has the opportunity to work with cross-functional teams like you do on a day-to-day basis to influence that culture? And then what you need to do as you go through your objectives, remember that being aware and being informed of the culture and the strategy is understand the bigger picture. And it's so easy to do. We get to, oh, I've got 75 tasks and this project has to be done in 6 months, and I have 5 milestones and 10 deliverables, and I've got people breathing down my neck. It's so easy to just get focused on, this is what I have to do. But remember, what you're doing is so much bigger than just checking a task. It is fulfilling a task that fulfills an objective, that fulfills a milestone, that completes an entire project, that aligns to the strategy or provides certain benefits for a program, which then rolls up, which we'll get into in just a minute. So just understand that bigger picture, and that'll help you really promote your good organizational culture, because you'll know as you interact with your stakeholders that this is much bigger than just my objectives. And then that allows you to influence. Say, I'll just call on somebody that typed in the chat, Lacey, I'll just say, so Lacey says she's doing her project, and I look at it, and my example is usually around flowers from this garden in Ireland. And say Lacey is in charge of the rose garden, and she has in her project of developing this rose garden for all these tourists that come to our garden. And she's aware of this bigger picture because this garden is part of a bigger garden. And I look over at Lacey and I see what she's doing. Now she is utilizing, oh, look, she put in new sprinkler systems that use 10% less water. And I look at that and go, oh, I should do that because that's saving water. Why? Because one of the goals of the gardens that I talk about, they want to be net zero. So I'm like, Lacey understands the bigger picture because she's doing things that align to the strategy. And then that influences me as another project manager to influence that culture for the good. Does that make sense? And then as you go to the program, it really is the same. As a program manager, it's the same as a project manager, except you have a bigger audience. You typically are doing bigger cross-functional teams, big bodies of work with multiple projects, and you're handing things off and you're making sure that the benefits that your program has align up to that portfolio strategy. And so you now, and if there's any program managers on, you also know, your stakeholders now start to go north and south a little bit more as well. You have a bigger influence to upper management, to even executive management. And then as you do that, you can utilize then my project and Lacey's project and Ashok. If I said your name right, say you are the program manager, and now our projects are now rolling up to this program, Ashok, that you are the program manager for, and we're all on the same page. We are influencing a broader group of stakeholders, and you're utilizing my project success and Lacey's project success to realize the benefits for your success as you align to the portfolio. And I have one quote that I do want to share here from D.I. Cleveland. Wrote a book on, basically it's a field management guide to project management. And I love this quote. And it says, a project team culture is a community. It's a pattern of social interactions out of shared interest. Well, what are the shared interests? Well, our organizational culture. Remember, we are all the hands. And it says mutual obligations, cooperation, friendships, and work challenges. And I love that quote because what it does is helps us step back and go, this is about people. It's about our stakeholders and influencing them to promote positive work culture. The tasks will get done, but we have to understand, why are we doing this tasks? What people are we working with? And so I just love that quote because it shows that bigger culture and influence. And then lastly, it's the portfolio managers. And really that one is, how is my portfolio aligning to the strategy? Because as we know, if there's any portfolio managers on the call, you have that direct link to executive strategy. That is your job.
Yeah.
And so as you influence, and then, but again, you still have to see the big picture. Like, I am running the IT, maybe you have multiple PMOs or multiple portfolios, and you can say, okay, well, I'm running this, and this is all I care about is my IT PMO or my finance PMO or my fill in the blank for your organization. And you have to go, how does this mix with all the other ones? Because I can't influence culture as a portfolio manager if I shut myself off from everybody else and create silos.
Yep.
So that's a very long answer, but that you can tell when this is the heart of this topic, is how can we as professionals influence that culture?
Exactly. Now, every individual, whether project, program, portfolio, or doers, everybody have opportunity to influence the organization culture one way or other. Good.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 5th edition of the standard for program management, they have introduced a new domain called collaboration. I think you missed that part because you already in 4th edition. So collaboration is one where he's talking about many things, including the building the culture. As a program manager, as a sponsor, everybody has responsibility to build the organizational culture or right culture where the sharing, engagement, team of team function, collaboration can happen.
Yeah, that is. I am so glad too that they added that section in, because it is very key.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah, so you have a question. So change managers need to be from BAU. Okay, they need to understand the business. That's the step one to understand the stakeholder. Then they must produce the baseline for all benefits. Lastly, these change managers must collect the data to understand progress. All this occurs within the program post-project implementation in the cool down phase, okay, for betting on. Okay, do you use change managers to do the above? If not, how do you do it?
Well, I'll touch on the last. It's a really good question. I'm not going to speak a ton on change management. I do have a change management certification, but it is not my main. But obviously, as you know, we interact with change managers all the time.
Yep.
And I do like the question though for embedding them into some of these things. And we do use like change managers for doing, but I think like a lot of organizations, there really needs to be more collaboration and more really mixing of what a change manager and project managers do. And there's also overlap. We also know that we have to be change managers, and change managers have to know some about project management. But I just want to touch on your part there on producing a baseline for all the benefits. Lastly, these change managers must collect the data to understand the progress. Sometimes I've seen, like in organizations, sometimes project or actually program managers will take that function to be able to kind of watch that data in the, whether it's reporting, dashboarding, to kind of collect that data and actually create that baseline themselves. That's what I have seen more.
Yeah.
But then using that change manager piece there, and instead of them collecting that, although I think they can, I have seen more to where like the program or project collects that information, and then, or even a business analyst, which is I'm thinking where you went with your maybe BAU, maybe business analyst, but I'm not sure. Then you collaborate that between your business analyst, between your project, and between your change to say, here's all the data. And then you bring that to that change manager, say, okay, we've got to make some changes. How do we get from current state to future state and start developing that change management plan with that data? So I think that can go both ways. I think it could be a change manager function. And you did specifically ask the question, do we use change managers? Yes, we do, but more so in that example that I just used, to where that, and hopefully in your organizations too, that we use our change managers to really collaborate with them and understand what their function is, and not kind of just use them as a, communication piece. So.
Yeah. All right.
Good question.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for question. Thank you for explaining it very nicely. Okay. Okay, we'll come back to other questions. So can you share some like specific example of when you successfully influence a positive cultural shift within an organization, and what strategies were most effective in achieving this?
I'll give a shorter answer for this one. I have two quick. One, back when I was a PMO director, and years ago, mid-2000s, it dates me just a little bit. And this is where I really started to implement some of these organizational cultures, because I made some mistakes. And so one thing that I was like, okay, how can I positively influence my team? I was an IT PMO director, so as part of that, we had developers, we had IT technicians, we had engineers, and that was at that point the biggest success that I saw was starting to really engage with my team and encouraging them to engage with all of their stakeholders. And that is one of the things that I've seen success for the last almost 20 years, is that it's that strategy of, okay, understanding the strategy, understanding this culture, and then building those relationships with your team and with the stakeholders that you come in contact with. Why? It helps you celebrate together when there's success, and when something goes wrong, it's not such a big deal, because you understand. We know how each of us operate. We know that this mistake is something that we can overcome, and you move on. It doesn't hurt the relationship, and it makes you more open to correcting that and then moving on to promote that culture, as opposed to kind of shutting yourself off and maybe creating a silo, or or shutting yourself off to kind of break that relationship. Well, it's really hard as project professionals, or as if you're in a PMO, it's really hard to get those initiatives completed when you don't have good relationships within those teams. And so what I started to do, one of them back then was open door policy. If anything goes wrong, come in and let's talk about it now. Let's not let this fester. Let's talk about this now so we can keep this initiative, this project, whatever you fill in the blank, going. And the other thing, and I mentioned at the beginning when I was talking about my certifications, another strategy that has worked extremely well for me is being willing to share information. Whether that is something you learn in a course, maybe like this webinar, or maybe it's just something you learn on a project. Have good lessons learned, good retrospects, share that information, even if it was bad. There's a reason why in a retrospect we say what didn't go well. It's okay. And if we're open about, I found just it's so much more successful just to share that information, because if I hold it, it doesn't do you any good, or vice versa. Let me tell you what I learned yesterday, and then you can go use it in your project and you can tell somebody else. So those are practices that I found to be very successful. And then my last example is actually right now. It is the same example. The team that I'm working on, same thing, just very much, even in our management structure that we have on our organization, it's very much a how can we make this better, not only for our customers but for each other. That way we can stay aligned to that strategy. And so I love the team's messages where you can say, hey, guess what I found? Here, you might be interested in learning about this, or when somebody shares that with me, because that all keeps us in a good, positive culture.
Yeah, perfect. Good. Thank you. What else we can talk? Okay, let me take this question. What does a good business culture looks like in your view?
Some of it is what I just shared. Like, you can tell, and one of the ways to talk about a good culture is to talk about what a not so good culture looks like, which we'll get to in just a second. But it's kind of those things that I was talking about, that as we become aware, as we celebrate our successes, as we, it's I love that you shared on the PgMP, that collaboration piece. That's a good culture. Showing value, recognition, and those are all things. Rewards, recognition, internal growth. That's another big culture. If you're in an organization that only promotes from the outside or doesn't provide professional development, those are all good things of a positive organizational culture. It's because your executives and those that create that culture understand the value of their employees. So those are just a couple things that I would say really stand out. It's just like them helping you get to where you want to go in your career. Why? Because they know it's going to benefit the organization and you. And lastly, a good culture really sees and understands that you are more than just somebody they pay, but you are a person that they really value as a human being, for your talents, for who you are, and what you can do to help make that team. So that's something else that I think is very, very valuable. And when you see that in research too, that's it's not just my opinion.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, guys, just to some few things. I'm going to share a PDU code on the chat. And previously, I already shared some of the information, such as some of the links to videos, previous videos, and the YouTube channels. And I also share the discount coupon in case you want to join my virtual programs, group programs, or personal programs. Or I'm running a PfMP bootcamp in New Jersey next month. 9th, 10th, 11th of May. Then I have a PgMP PfM program happening in Vancouver as well as in Seattle. So, or there are other places in Dallas as well. This is my place. So if you're joining, you can use the coupon code, you can save some money, and also most important, you get the learning from this program. Okay, in the meantime, I think you can hear me all right. Let me ask the next question.
Yeah.
So cultural changes can be intangible and hard to measure. What metrics or indicators do you recommend to evaluate the impact of cultural initiatives on project and organization success? Okay, so I'm going to close the poll. Can you please finalize your poll? Okay, in the meantime, you can start talking.
Yeah, so you are right. Organizational culture sometimes is hard to measure. There are some tangibles. Larry Sen, who is kind of known as the father of corporate culture, he does actually have some tangibles that, and more of, though it's not on the recognition, but more on here's what a good culture looks like and here's what it does. And it sounded like, here's some of the metrics for that, like 10% people with good organizational culture, that those organizations have 10% higher in customer ratings, 20% higher in sales, and they grew an average of 2.5 times more. So those are the results of the organizational culture. But to your question, how do you recognize that? Like, that's the results of it, but when you're in that, how do you recognize those things? What are those intangibles? And I just wrote down a couple things here that based off of research and experience, that here's and this kind of goes some to that question really of what does a good culture look like. And employee referrals to the company, there's a good indicator. That is an intangible. Are you and I in an organization recommending people to the company that we work for? That's a good sign of an organizational culture, and it's an intangible, but it definitely shows that culture. Are there opportunities for growth? And here's another one, and this goes to that information sharing. Do you have the freedom of opinion? That's an intangible as well. And what that means, not just whatever type of opinion, but as you're within your work environment, do you have the freedom to say, well, what about this? What about that? Have we tried this before? That is a good sign. That's one of those intangibles that shows a good organizational culture. And then the last one, which I mentioned as well on the pods, is that reward and growth. So that's another really good way to kind of measure. As I'm looking around, do I see people promoted? Do I see people staying in the organization? Retention is another big intangible for organizations showing that they have a good culture. Some people use like gamifications or so.
Yeah.
Which then all of that kind of brings down to, well, I'll let you go into a bit before. I've been holding off on the negative parts because some of these tie into the opposite side.
Yeah. So anything else on this, or you done with the question?
No, I think that's it. There's just from what I've seen, there's just a few big things. One thing that really can be done that I should say, if people actually listen to them, company surveys to their employees are huge. There's a reason why there's great places to work surveys and internal surveys, because, and then I actually, Carrie Ann Worley, who is a Forbes Council member, she talks about this, but she says, here's the key to those. When you get that information, you have to listen to it and you have to respond to it in a way that doesn't shut the people off. And I love that. I love that insight from her, because as a top businesswoman on the Forbes Council, that it's like, that is one of those intangibles. That it's like, take that information, digest it, and then listen to it, and then act on it. Yep. And so that helps promote culture. If you get it and you're like, oh, here's our results, and then you just file it away until next year, that doesn't help.
Yeah. All right, I will take my next question. There's no guarantee that you will find yourself in positive organizational culture. What methods and strategies have you found to navigate through challenging cultures?
All right, we're to the last one here. And I love your comment there, Ashok, too. Team building is a great way to build culture, absolutely. Yes, so hopefully nobody finds themselves in this right now.
Yep.
But probably at some point, you are going to either be in a negative culture or you're going to know somebody that does, and it's really good as a project professional to know, how do I navigate that? And because sometimes the illustration that I use in my presentation is actually of a pet cemetery. So you can envision all of these little tiny pet tombstones that makes you very sad. And when you're walking through, what do? You feel stuck. You're like, oh, could I ever get out of here? But I believe as project professionals, because of our unique roles, what we can do is within our whatever sphere, and I'm not saying this is easy because I've been there, it's not. But here's just a couple questions that I would ask yourself, and you could take these with you, maybe help you or even help somebody else. Is there a sense that employees are closed off or anxious or fearful? If you feel that in your culture, it's probably not promoting, you probably don't have a great culture, but what can you do?
Yeah.
You have project meetings, you work with stakeholders, you work with other project managers, we already talked about what kind of sphere of influence you have. Use that space to try to turn it around with continuous improvement. It's going to take small steps, but you think about it, if it's a culture that's maybe kind of pressing down and you kind of feel stuck, but yet I come to a meeting with, I come to a project meeting and I maybe encourage Dharam, and we're talking about this deliverable, and we're like, yes, we can do this, and you understand this, and then we build that relationship, and then Dharam goes back to his team and he starts to do that, and you can see how that can snowball. So ask yourself that question, do I feel this? And then establish and maintain standards of fairness.
Yep.
If somebody's scared to even talking in a meeting, maybe start out by even using like a Delphi technique of just saying, hey, everyone write down, nothing's off the table, it's anonymous, so it's not threatening. And then I come back to a meeting 2 weeks later and I say, I love this idea, we're going to implement this, and I didn't even use your name, but inside you're going, that's my idea. They're actually using my idea, and it seems small, but it's one step at a time to turn around that culture. And then the second question is, do you recognize maybe social or work cliques or silos developing? That's another sign of a negative organizational culture. And if you start to see, oh, that person only hangs out with these 3 people and they leave the rest of the project team in the dark. So here's what you can do, is that you can then encourage and participate in building those relationships. You come out of that circle and go, I'm going to engage with a stakeholder, and I'm going to, again, build that relationship. I'm going to bring them along, and all of a sudden now your team gets bigger. And those silos start to go away. Or say, and it happens, say this team doesn't talk to this team, all it takes is 2 people to start to build those relationships, to say, okay, I'm going to talk to you, we're going to build this, and go, you know what, the accounting department really isn't that bad. I talked to Dharam the other day, and he's a really great guy and really wants us to move forward on this project. Again, you go back and you start, and it snowballs. So that's just a couple questions that you can ask yourself, and make sure that you aren't promoting that negative culture. That's number one. Don't become involved in it. I've been there.
Yeah.
I have done it, and it makes you feel yucky. and it's not professional. It doesn't do anybody any good. And so if you just step back and go, what can I do to help turn this around and build this with my stakeholders? Remember, you're working on objectives, you're working on programs, you're working on portfolios. How can I, in my sphere of influence, turn this around and promote positive support culture?
Look, I do have one audience question. I will take that, and then unless we have another question, we'll. Okay, how can I improve my project management skills effectively?
How can you improve? There's a lot of things you can do. But if I'll just stick to the organizational culture and our role with that, how can you do that successfully? A big part of that is using standards and best practices as your base. If you start with, and this is really where some of the certifications really come in, or taking a class to get some PDUs or something like that, or reading a book on project management, keeping those standards, just understanding those bases helps you be more effective, because when you're in a project meeting or you see something, you understand, oh, I know what a scrum meeting is all about. I know what a stand-up is all about. I know how to do reporting or how to surface risks or risk mitigation. You understand those bases, and that alone will help you be a more effective project manager. And then when you get to the place where you're like, oh, I know all these basics, these foundational things, then that allows you to then take it to a next level. Maybe it's learning a new project management tool. Maybe it's getting another certification. Maybe it's looking for, you know what? I've been working on projects that get done in 3 months that are maybe $20,000, $50,000 projects. I'm ready to step it up now that I know more, because I've been effective, I've been successful. Now I can step it up, and I'm ready to take on something bigger, which then challenges you to learn more. So I hope that helps a little bit. It's a very broad, there's so many things you can do, but start with the foundation.
Exactly. I mean, yes, the PMI standards are there, or you start going through them. And of course, watching YouTube, lots of video webinars like we have been creating, I have been creating, and join some program, learn the best practices from best people. So these are a few things I can also, what you're saying, reiterate that. Thank you, Jeff, for your contribution. Not once, actually doing second time. So previously as well, you were really awesome, and this time again. And I'm very happy and glad I invited you again, and you are spot on. Okay, you can see that, and if you want to talk to me, of course, you can just say www.talktotharam.com. And yes, the PDU code is there on the chat, and the discount coupon code is there in case you want to join my program, or videos and other things. But most importantly, thank you very much for joining this event. I know some people, it's middle of night or early morning, late night, whatever it is, but you always come there, join this event. You learn from the experts like Jeff. And thank you, Jeff. Your contribution is really appreciated. Happy to have you again, and maybe again.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here, and thanks everyone for the great questions and everything. And if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or anything like that, I would love to connect with you, and it would be great. And thank you, Dharam, for this, and I really appreciate it.
Great. All right, guys. So until next time, which is not far away. Actually, in May, early May, I have another event happening. So keep an eye on the events. And actually, the event is on 16th of May, then 23rd of May. So it's not, a lot of experts coming here. So thank you again, and I will see you again, or you will see me soon in this webinar. Okay, take care. Bye.